In this video, you will understand a piecewise function using an example. Solve for the y value of each x value of a given piecewise function and represent a real-life situation using piecewise function. We have learned that a piecewise function is a function which is defined by multiple subfunctions where each subfunction applied to a certain interval of the main function's domain or a subdomain. F of x equals negative 2x minus 6 if x is less than or equal to negative 2, 2 minus x squared if negative 2 is less than x but x is less than positive 2, 2x minus 6 if x is greater than or equal to positive 2 is an example of a piecewise function. In this example, the piecewise function is denoted by f of x, while these are the multiple subfunctions of the given piecewise function. And here are the intervals of the main function's domain or subdomains of our piecewise function. Let us discover how to solve a piecewise function using the given example. We will solve for f of negative 11, f of negative 5, f of 0, f of 1 and 75/100ths, f of 2, and f of 10. Among others, piecewise function requires that you can recognize and differentiate equality and inequality symbols from one another. What are these symbols? In our lesson, we will use the equal sign, not equal sign, less than sign, greater than sign, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. In addition, we will also use the approximately symbol to inform others that we round off or round up certain numerical value. Aside from such skill, you also need to correctly interpret the interval of certain subdomain of a piecewise function, which equality or inequality symbols are involved. The first subfunction of our piecewise function is telling us that when our x value or input or domain is any real number that is less than or equal to negative 2, we will use f of x equals negative 2x minus 6 to solve for its corresponding y value or output or range. Going back to our example, since negative 11 and negative 5 are numbers less than negative 2, we will use negative 2x minus 6 to solve for their y values denoted by f of negative 11 and f of negative 5. Now, we will use the second subfunction f of x equals 2 minus x squared to solve for y values of x values which are any number between -2 and +2. Or if -2 is less than our x value, but our x value is less than +2. Since 0 and 1 and 700ths are numbers which are greater than -2 but less than +2, we will use the second subfunction of our piecewise function to solve for their y values. The last subfunction of our piecewise function is telling us to use it to find for the y values of x values which are greater than or equal to +2. Finally, since +2 and +10 are x values equal and greater than +2, we will use f of x equals 2x minus 6 to solve for f of 2 and f of 10. To sum it up, we will use subfunction number 1 to solve for the y values of -5 and -11. Then, we will use the subfunction number 2 to solve for the outputs of 0 and +1 and 7500ths. Finally, we will use the third subfunction to solve for the range of +2 and +10 domains. Let's start solving for the y value of -5. All we need to do is to plug -5 to all x values in the first subfunction. Therefore, we will have f of -5 equals -2 multiplied by -5 minus 6. Following the PEMDAS rule, we will multiply -2 to -5. Their product is +10. Then, minus 6. Now, 10 minus 6 is 4. Therefore, f of -5 is 4. Now, let's find for f of -11. We will substitute -11 to all x variables in the same function. We will have f of -11 equals -2 multiplied by -11 minus 6. Now, -2 multiplied by -11 is +22. 22 minus 6 is 16. Therefore, f of -11 is 16. Now, we will find f of 0 using the second subfunction of our piecewise function. We will substitute 0 to all x variables in f of x equals 2 minus x squared. We will have f of 0 equals 2 minus quantity 0 squared. Now, 0 squared is 0. Then, 2 minus 0 is 2. Therefore, f of 0 is positive 2. Following the same procedure, if we substitute 1 and 75 hundredths to all x variables of the same subfunction, we will have f of 1 and 75 hundredths equals 2 minus quantity 1 and 75 hundredths squared. Simplifying our equation, we will have 3 and 625 10,000ths. Now, 2 minus 3 and 625 10,000ths is negative 1 and 625 10,000ths. Therefore, f of 1 and 75 hundredths is negative 1 and 625 10,000ths. We can also rewrite it by rounding it off to the nearest hundredths. Therefore, f of 0 is 2, while f of 1 and 75 hundredths is approximately negative 1 and 6 hundredths. Now, we will solve for f of 2 using the third subfunction. Substituting 2 to all x variables of the third subfunction, we will have f of 2 equals 2 multiplied by 2 minus 6. 2 multiplied by 2 is equal to 4. Now, 4 minus 6 will give us negative 2. Therefore, f of 2 is negative 2. Finally, we will solve for f of 10. We will replace all x variables by 10. We will have f of 10 equals 2 multiplied by 10 minus 6. The product of 2 and 10 is 20. Now, 20 minus 6 is 14. Therefore, f of 10 is 14. To sum it up, the y value of negative 5 is positive 4. The output of the input negative 11 is positive 16. The range of the domain 0 is positive 2. Approximately negative 1 and 6 hundredths corresponds to 1 and 75 hundredths. Then, the y value of positive 2 is negative 2. Finally, positive 14 is the output of the input positive 10. Now, let's discuss one example of applications of piecewise function in real-life situations. Here, Migo Mendoza is charged 300 pesos monthly for a particular mobile plan, which includes 100 free text messages. Messages in excess of 100 are charged 1 peso each. In this problem, we are asked to represent the amount he pays each month as a piecewise function of the number of messages he sent in excess of the free 100 text messages per month. We will start with the representations to solve this problem. Let us represent that piecewise function as f of m, where m represents the number of excess messages from the 100 free text messages of MeGo. Now, let 300 pesos be the cost of monthly plan with 100 free text messages. And let 1 peso be the payment for every excess message sent. Based from the problem, there are two subfunctions we need to find for our piecewise function denoted by f of m. The first subfunction should represent the amount MeGo pays if he doesn't send more than 100 text messages in a month. Then, the second subfunction is for the amount MeGo pays per month if he sends more than 100 text messages. Since 300 pesos is a fixed price for the mobile plan of MeGo with 100 free text messages, this is represented by a subfunction f of m equals 300 pesos. Now, we will determine the interval of the subdomain for this subfunction. Since m represents the number of text messages, we know that it should be between 0 and 100 for MeGo to pay exactly 300 pesos. We also know that whether or not MeGo sends a text message, he will still pay the fixed price, which is 300. Therefore, we will use less than or equal to symbol between 0 and m. Also, since it is a fixed price, he will be charged the exact amount if he sends exactly 100 text messages in a month. Therefore, the inequality symbol between m and 100 is less than or equal to. Therefore, the first subfunction is represented by f of m is equal to 300 pesos if 0 is less than or equal to m, but m is less than or equal to 100. Now, for the second subfunction, we know that MeGo will be charged 1 peso every time he exceeds from the 100 free text messages. Also, we know that m represents the number of his exceeded text messages. Therefore, we will have f of m equals 300 pesos plus 1 peso multiplied by m, or simply m. Since this subfunction represents the amount MeGo pays for the mobile plan that exceeds the 100 free text messages in a month, the interval of the subdomain is m is greater than 100. Therefore, the second subfunction is f of m equals 300 pesos plus m if m is greater than 100. The amount Migo Mendoza pays each month with m as the number of excess text messages sent in a month is represented by the piecewise function f of m equals 300 if 0 is less than or equal to m, but m is less than or equal to 100. 300 plus m if m is greater than 100. Did you find this video helpful? For more SEEKnaYan videos, please subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button below and activating the notification bell. I'll see you all again in the next episode of SEEKnaYan. Problema sa sipnayan, isik mo na yan kay Migo Mendoza.